All right, I have one last example I'd like to show you. This was a project that I worked on for a advertising company who was doing a project for a grocery store chain. They came to me and said that they wanted to, show you some concept design and show you kind of the whole process through Final Illustration. So this is one, kind of project for illustration. So they came to me and said they want to sell dairy. And they had an idea of the, kind of a picnic blanket, little ants around a picnic blanket, celebrating these dairy products. So in a couple of days, we did tons of different sketches. This was kind of the first one where we did a real loose sketch and said, all right, we've got cheese, we've got milk, we've got yogurt, and we got little ants, and we got these broccoli trees. Refined it a bit more so they could kind of see the idea. And they're like, this is great, but let's explore a bit more. What if we don't have ants? What if we do vegetable characters? Try something completely different. Make it like a vegetable world. So, started sketching out real loose sketches, real fast type stuff, and refined it a bit more and showed this to them to say, okay, there's, all the world is all vegetable based and you're just enjoying, flowing rivers of milk and, laying on little cheese blankets. And they liked this, but they said, well, let's go back to the first design. And we were experimenting in our aspect ratio too. Is this going to be poster size? What are we going to do with this? So they said, let's try kids. So kids in this dairy world, there's giant dairy things. And tried this and we're like, nah, that's not really working. But we really love the vegetables. Why don't we try the veggie characters in this world? So, put these in. They really like the characters, but they just thought it didn't feel epic enough. It didn't feel big enough. There's just a couple of things here. They want lots of little things to draw your eye. So I convinced them to go with kind of a super widescreen kind of idea and did this, really epic kind of world. You have, mountains made out of cheese and gigantic broccoli trees and waterfalls with, milk, giant glass of milk and, floating vegetables and giant things of orange juice and all kinds of little characters jumping in, activities. Again, I kept it really, really, really loose, like, a less than an hour sketch, just kind of plan this out, send it to them, talk to them on Skype, send it back and forth. And they liked it, but they said, this is, we're having a problem here with scale. We're thinking that we'll have to, let's make the trees back to trees and let's make everything real scale. Because right now the milk is like, 20 stories tall. Let's make everything back to, scale of vegetables. Let's go back to the simple idea they had from the start for, kind of a picnic. And so under the trees. They said all the trees are real trees. And again, I'm trying to stay super fast, loose with these sketches. Just get the main ideas down so I don't waste any time, and show this to them and say, okay, forgive all the scribbles, but, we've got, little carrots, working around a little thing of sour cream, and you got some guys pouring milk into a bowl, kind of cereal bowl, some orange juice, a picnic basket, and it's more ideas in my head and with them. And they said, okay, we like this idea, refine it a bit more. So I decided to make it a bit warmer and nicer, and we moved some things around. Again, super crazy fast, all within, a period of 20, 30 minutes, doing refining very loose sketches. But I'm doing a lot of planning and resolving the shape, the form, the basic kind of color schemes of everything. So refined it quite a bit more, and they're like, all right, now we can start to really see. There's tomato guys, there's little strawberry guys, there's, cereal guys jumping into a bowl of milk, there's little grapes climbing up a banana and kind of using the banana as a slide. There's a little cheese playground. There's these guys sitting like in a hot tub of sour cream. There's a little broccoli guy just chomping away at some butter, and a little carrot guy in the corner. And they really liked this and said, okay, let's refine it more. They gave me notes. We started to add lots of little details. So we wanted your eyes to go all over this image and see all kinds of different things. They came up with the idea of dipping this celery stick into sour cream, and we're like, oh, that's great. It's really funny. And then we started to think about it, like, well, what are the vegetables going to eat each other? And that's kind of cannibalistic and kind of crazy. Would kids get afraid of that? But, we kept refining, going back and forth. It was kind of a fun process. And then they said, well, let's add some more yogurt. Let's make it a little bit wider screen, give a little bit more room here. and go back to the idea of the guys in the hot tub, type idea. And then they said, well, we got too many of these plastic containers around the scene. Why don't we make like, a glass container for yogurt, kind of like a parfait type thing. So we got these little raspberries that are jumping in here and splashing around. Add a little bit more to the bottom of the frame so they have a little bit more room to see everything. Move the parfait over, and I believe that was the final sketch. Then I went into Maya. So we got this sketch approved and we said, all right, this is kind of what we're going for. So let's start in Maya. And one process that I really like to use, and you've probably seen it in the other examples, is to stay really simple, to do kind of layout animation. So I'm just blocking in basic shapes for everything. A lot of times I like to do my lighting, or at least my base lighting in this stage too. So I bring an image plane into the camera in Maya, set up a scene, try to find the perspective. Sometimes this is tricky to get the perspective to match my sketch. I try to get good, perspective on my sketches, but there's always optical illusions in what you're seeing. So, this takes a good amount of time, several hours or maybe a day to block out and try to match the sketch as closely as I can, to try to get that kind of positioning of everything the same way that was in the design. Then I'm doing modeling and a bit of texturing. As I model things, I start to kind of block in basic colors. The blanket here, I use procedural textures. So this is a ramp and a cloth texture out of Maya, and I just kind of loop it. That way, when I render this at its final resolution, which I believe was 11,000 pixels wide, all of this stays nice and crisp and clean, and I don't have to worry about texture maps. So I tried to avoid texture maps as much as possible. So keep kind of refining as I go, doing lighting and shading as I go to, kind of keep working my way around, build little characters. But you can see there's a lot of things that are still just kind of sphere shapes. Build more, build more, build more. And I believe that this was kind of the final design. So let's look at Maya really quick and show you what I had done here. So here's Maya. Here's what the final scene looked like. It's kind of lightweight. Looks like it's 800,000 triangles, so it's not too bad. So I'm going to walk you through the lighting of this. So I was using global illumination. I was using V-Ray for this one because it gave me a lot of subtle details. Here's the lights in my scene. So you can kind of see all these different lights. So I like to start simple. So I'm going to, let me show you the render view. Come on back. Okay, so here's the concept design. I love in Maya to actually open an image so I can load the image in and compare this to, so this is sketch, final render. And that way I can kind of go back and forth and see my similarities and see where it's not exactly the same. There are definitely a lot of differences, but in the end we kind of chose compositionally. We made a lot of choices, but it still follows the thought and the intent of the original design. So let's kind of break down the lighting. So the very first thing is a fill from sky. So this is a V-Ray light. It just has a single color in it. It's kind of a spherical light that does nice soft ray trace shadows all around the scene. This is the equivalent to the ambient occlusion node in Mental Ray, only this is much more accurate because you're actually getting true, radiosity and the light's bleeding around. We're getting some nice kind of color temperature. If you notice with objects in global illumination, you get color temperature kind of for free because the light will, like if you look at the cheese over here, it's not just light yellow, dark yellow. As it goes, darker and darker, you get reds and different color of the light that's bouncing around. It's really nice. So subtle, way that the math is working, renders pretty quickly. So this is just the fill light by itself. And then this is the key light by itself. So let me actually show you what the key light looks like here. What I did for the key is I did a sphere light. In V-Ray or different global illumination packages, this is physical based rendering. So the size of this sphere light will determine how soft the shadows are. So this radius right here, if I make this smaller, the shadows are going to get tighter. If I make this bigger, it's going to get softer and softer. So I have a nice big soft kind of light that's shining into the scene. It does have fall off, so the light will stay bright here and it get like a light bulb, it'll get shallower, kind of fall off as we go. So coming back to the render here. So this is with just that one light on. So you can kind of see the difference of fill lights, key light by itself. Then I have some different bounce lights around the scene, kind of top fill lights. I was trying to match the illustration. So bounce light, there's one light kind of off to the side here. This is this bounce light. This is what they call a rect light. So here you go. This is that light, just a rectangular, it's like an area light, Maya area light, but this is a V-Ray light. It kind of shines in from the side, gives a nice little soft fill into these objects. It's going a little too dark without it. Then I have this top cool fill. This one really just kind of gives a little bit of cool light on the milk. And that looks like, if Maya will catch up, it looks like this. So you can kind of see the light over here. There's just kind of this little bit of cool light shining onto the top of the milk. Then I have bounce near the cereal, so I have two different bounce lights, again rect lights that are kind of near the cereal, shining up onto the orange juice and onto the cereal box and a little bit onto the tree. Those are over here. So here's my two bounce lights kind of shining up, kind of thinking there's a lot of bounce light, and I let V-Ray kind of naturally do what it would with global illumination, but then I'm thinking more like a live action photographer or a director of photography, cinematographer, and putting in extra bounce cards where I need extra light to make the shapes read, to make the illustration really beautiful. So hand placed bounce lights in different places. I have a specular only light onto the orange juice, so this light only emits, emits specular. It does not emit diffuse light, which means it's only going to, make little highlights. And that one looks, well, I don't have that in here, but I have some key lights on the cheese. So this is this is kind of like light linked only to these cheese pieces. And so here's my kind of little lights just to give a little bit more kind of shine, make them stand out so you can see this cheese by itself. Then I've got a warm bounce on the basket, again an area light over here that just kind of fills in this side. It has nice gradients of tone, so bright and then falling off. And then I've got a whole bunch of bounce lights that shine up onto the tree just to add some extra kind of like light glow over here onto the tree. And then I have a couple of small kind of reflection lights that just hit these little highlights on the center of the, let me just show you these guys. So they're, again, light linked to the different, to this carrot and to this guy. It's really to add some kind of specular highlights on them, to make them read, make their eyes have a nice kind of specular gleam. And so that's all the lights. Here is a render of all the lights except for the fill. So you can kind of see I'm using lots of lights to give a nice rim and shaping to the characters and nice little bounce, kind of kick light, key light, kick light, bounce lights. And then if I add the fill with that, it gives this nice, rich, warm, happy feel, but you still read the shapes and form of everything. You still got good contact shadows. You've got kind of nice kind of shaping. One other thing I thought would be nice to show you is I like to do with a lot of these cartoony type things. The shaders are really important. I'm using a lot of V-Ray shaders here, but they're real simple. Similar to what I do in Maya. But one trick that I really love to do is kind of this fall off. If I look at the shader for this guy, if you're familiar with shading. So I do have a texture map for the bump, and then I've got a, what we call, it's a ramp. It kind of looks like this. It's got black, and then it's got these different levels of kind of orange and yellow. And I've got a facing ratio node that is driving this ramp. What that does basically is it makes it kind of lighter on the edges. So you get, an orange shape, but then as it goes to the edge, it gets brighter, and so I could talk about this more. If you have questions about it, ask me. But what that does is it gives a real nice kind of like a rim light, soft edge. Let me look at the Photoshop file so you can see the final resolution of this guy. So this is the final image. If I go to actual pixels, you can see the level of detail that was in this guy. It was, pretty big. So it gives that kind of fall off edge to the shader that I was talking about here. So lots of details in these little guys. Here's my matte paint in the background. So little guys swimming around. So yeah, you get the idea, that this illustration. So this is lighting for illustration. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to really talk as much about lighting for animation. I will be kind of taking this masterclass and converting it to a full DVD, and I plan to kind of cover these same topics, talking about illustration, but then I'm going to take some time to go into lighting for animation. And so I'm going to, let me hide this and show you this. So I'm going to do a little short film, and I've designed this small little world with multiple sets, 3 different locations. So there's an exterior, there's an interior to this house, and then there's another hallway, and there's a second interior that leads to this greenhouse. So I'm in the process of modeling all this. I don't have it quite ready yet. I've got some friends that are helping me do some modeling. And then I'm going to have, I'm going to talk about the whole process of animation and production, so focusing on lighting. But this is kind of my storyboard reels for this. I've got a little frog-like character, and he runs up to the door of this house, kind of comes up to the door, unlocks the door. There's music on this that you're not hearing right now. Comes into his house, all kind of excited, comes across the room, goes over to a shelf, looks for his special potion, and grabs it, goes through the door, down this hallway, runs into his garden all excited, and you see this amazing garden with all kinds of crazy plants and mushrooms growing. The idea, there's not too much story to it. If I had continued it on, I would have thought that he would go into this world, plant it, plant his seed, and put little drop of this stuff, and then you grow this, fantastic new plant. It's about 30-second little short, and here's some layout animation for it. So I've started building it in 3D. Again, just roughing it out so I can plan my cameras and plan the whole thing. So on the final DVD that I hope to finish sometime shortly after this, I'm going to kind of go through the idea of lighting for animation, shot-based lighting, master lighting versus shot lighting, kind of working this all the way through, rendering techniques, lighting on moving objects and moving characters. So look for that coming soon. Thanks for watching this masterclass. I hope there were some useful things in here, and I look forward to hearing your questions, trying to answer any questions, and hopefully it was useful. Thanks again for watching.